guys, so for this trick, we can begin by removing the deck of cards from the box. You guys can see all the cards are shuffled and random, but I would begin by having the spectator just removing any 3 cards from the deck. It does not matter where they come from. All that matters is that they know they're completely random choices. And then we're gonna take these cards and leave them underneath the card case just for now. We will get back to them a little bit later. I would actually hand the deck over to the spectator so that they can go ahead and shuffle the cards as much as they want. They can cut them as well, but as long as the spectator knows that this is a shuffled deck of cards. I asked them, do you want to cut the cards as well? Okay, and you can cut it one more time if you so wish, but it doesn't really matter. But as long as you know, once again, this is a completely random shuffle. Okay, so here's the order that you came up with, and here's what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna take my finger and run down the side, and if I had a spectator, they would tell me at any point to stop. Let's say right about here, okay? I'm gonna drop my finger down right where they said stop, okay? I'm just gonna hold my finger down on the card and slide it out here. My finger is on the 10 of spades currently, but if I did have a spectator, they really could genuinely say stop at any point. It is a free choice, okay? How crazy would it be if we just took this 10 and we waved it over those other 3 cards that you chose? Can you go ahead and lift up the box for me and take a look at the other 3 cards that have now magically turned into the other 10s? And that right there is the trick. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you want to learn how it's done, be sure to stick around for the tutorial. Alright guys, so here's the tutorial for the trick that you just saw. So this is one of my all-time favorite impromptu tricks that you can do because it honestly requires very, very little setup, and you can do this with a borrowed deck of cards. It doesn't really look like anything sneaky is happening here. It genuinely looks like real impossible magic. So I'm very excited to show you guys how this is done, and without further ado, let's get right into the tutorial. So there is a little bit of a setup for this trick, and I know I just said that this is an impromptu trick, but this setup will literally take you 5 seconds to do. Is you just find any 4 of a kind and just set it up on the top of the deck. You can do this in an impromptu setting by culling the cards. Like if you were gonna do the jacks, you could just cull those while you're spreading through, or you can literally just right in front of the spectator, you can just pull out the 4 jacks or whatever you're gonna do, put them on top of the deck, and then give it a couple false shuffles. The spectators will not be paying attention to you whatsoever. So you can set this up in literally 5 seconds. It's not a big deal. So set this up right in front of the spectator if you want to. And it also is important that you do have a card box for this trick, or this really could be anything. Like it could be a cell phone, or it could be a glass or something. It doesn't matter what this is, but as long as there's something on the table to place the cards under when you place the cards on the table, because this is some justification for you doing the switch that you will be doing in just a moment here that I'll teach you. But this is the start position of the trick. So you begin by taking the cards out of the box or whatever, and you ask the spectator to remove any 3 cards from the deck. And here's what I do is when I spread through the cards, I eyeball the first 3 cards, and then I'm going to simply take my fingers and move that 3rd card a little bit in-jogged, just like this, so that I can very easily get a break on that card later. So now the card is in-jogged. I can then continue to spread through the cards, and the spectator now has a completely free choice to touch any 3 cards in the deck, okay? So once 3 cards are touched, what's going to happen is I'm going to simply lift up on this break with my thumb and push up so that I square up the card, but that will also allow me to catch a pinky break right underneath the top 3 cards. And I'm gonna do this pushing in the in-jog card with my thumb at the exact same time that my hand goes to swivel out the top 3 cards, which will pivot along my middle finger here, just like so. These cards will be spun out, and then I will now have a break on the top 3 cards. Now, what I'm gonna do here is perform Marlo's visual retention change, which is one of the most visually deceiving card switches in sleight of hand, in my opinion. It looks something like this. Obviously, this angle is a horrible angle. You can clearly see what's happening here, but trust me, if the spectator is sitting right across from you, it's completely invisible, and I'm sure, like you guys saw in the performance, it looked incredibly clean. So it looks something like this. And I won't go super in depth on how this is done, but I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of what's happening here. So how I would first recommend to practice this switch is I would actually recommend you practicing with one single card. So just take a single card first. You're going to hold the pinky break on it, just like you normally would. And then what you're going to do is you're going to simply kind of release pressure with your fingers and let the card kind of drop onto the table as you angle your hand so that the top of the deck is facing to the right, okay? So you're gonna continue to practice this, kind of releasing pressure, lifting up your hand slightly, letting some air go into the break, and then you're gonna let the card kind of drop flat onto the table. And once you're used to this motion here, once you're really, really comfortable doing this, then what you're gonna do is you're going to simply add a card on top. So you're going to get a break, then you're gonna add a single card on top with your thumb, holding it like this, and then you're gonna continue to do that switch. When the card goes on the table, you're going to move your thumb down and the card will go flush on top of the deck. So that's essentially what's happening here. You're gonna drop and place the card flush on the table. This will take some practice and some getting used to, but that's essentially what the move is, okay? So you'll just have to practice around with your finger position and everything to get comfortable, but that is essentially the basics of the move. And for this trick, you're gonna be doing this move with 3 cards. So I have a break right now underneath the 3 10s, and I have the 3 random cards that were chosen. Basically what just happened is I spun these cards out and I'm gonna simply place them in the position for the switch right here. Now I can do this myself or I can ask a spectator to do it for me, but I'm gonna lift up the card box or the glass or the phone or something to put the cards underneath, and I'm going to simply execute the switch as I lift up the box and then place it back on top. So to the spectator, it looks like nothing has happened. It just looks like I've taken the 3 cards and placed them under the box, but in reality, I've switched out those 3 cards for my 3 force cards over here, okay? And of course, there are many other switches that you can do. Of course, there's the Vernon transfer, which I also like to do. This one is also quite invisible in my opinion. It looks something like this, where you take the 3 cards out and you put the deck down, and now I've switched out the 3 cards for my 3 force cards. So that's another option that you can do. There's many other switches as well, so feel free to use whatever you're comfortable with. This one is definitely my favorite though. So once the 3 cards are under the box, you actually are going to hand the deck to the spectator and ask them to continue to shuffle it. Now remember, your other 10 is currently in the 4th position of the deck, but you actually don't really need to worry about that because you want the spectator to lose it further into the deck, into a random position. So you tell the spectator to genuinely shuffle the cards to really, really lose that card in the deck. But obviously you're not gonna tell them that, you're just telling them to shuffle. So once they're done, you're gonna tell the spectator to place the cards on the table face up. I'll be honest with you guys, the rest of this trick is purely up to chance. And I will be teaching you the psychological timing force that I used in the performance, and that wasn't fake. Like, that does genuinely work in real life. And if you don't believe me, go and watch my street performance videos, because I've done that force multiple times in those videos, and you'll see that it does work every single time. So trust me when I say that it does work, and it's a real force that you can use. If you guys don't want to do that, you can also just kind of leave this trick up to chance, because the spectator just shuffled that 10 of spades in the deck, and now you're gonna ask the spectator to cut the cards and just complete the cut. There is a small chance, I mean, it's a shuffled deck, but there is a small chance that they might just cut to that 10. Like, for example, I don't know where that 10 is, but like, let's say, for example, you ask the spectator to cut, and they cut right here, and you say, so, okay, we'll stop right here. So you shuffle the deck, you cut the card anywhere, and you cut to the 10, and that's the end of the trick. How impossible would that be? You guys can rely on luck to create miracles. So that's something that I think you guys really need to take advantage of. But of course, that's a very low chance of that happening. So if that doesn't happen after 2 cuts, then I would recommend not doing a third and just moving on to this next part of the trick. So the final stage that I do in the trick, and this is what works for me. I personally think this force is very comfortable in my opinion. I don't really find any issue with it, but I know it might be scary for some people. But what I do is I start from either side and I kind of just eyeball where the 10 is. I slow down my speed enough so that I give the spectator enough time to understand what's happening. About halfway from where I need to say stop, I'm gonna tell them that I need them to say stop. And then my speed will slow down even more. Usually the spectator will say stop around the 10. If they say stop at like the 9 or the 4 or the 7, it doesn't matter. You can simply wiggle your finger like this and keep your wrist steady, but do it very subtly, of course. No, don't do it super obvious. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking is, what if they say stop like over here or over here? Well, in that case, you just let them say stop there and you do something else. Because remember, you aren't telling the spectator, I'm gonna have you say stop, and wherever you say stop, I'm gonna pull that card out. Guys, you're not saying that to the spectator. The spectator doesn't know what's happening. So if you tell the spectator, say stop anywhere, they say stop right here. You're like, oh crap, that's not where I need them to say stop. Well, obviously you can't go over here. So drop down and say, okay, we'll go ahead and eliminate all these cards. There you go. That's the solution, all right? You don't actually need to pull out the card that you say stop at. You can change the rules of your own trick because it's your card trick. It's your trick at the end of the day. You can do whatever you want. The spectator does not care. They're here to enjoy the ride. Especially if you're vague with your instructions, you don't actually give them specific rules for what's happening, then they're not gonna care. And then you could do this again even. You can try to have them say stop again. Maybe they'll say stop again at this time, and now you can pull the card out. So that can be an option. If you want to do something else, you can have them cut again. Look at that. If they cut the cards, then they'll cut to the card. Like, you know, there's so many infinite amount of options really that you can do. But my personal favorite and my go-to is the psychological timing force where they say stop. But I know that's not going to be very comfortable for some people, but trust me, with practice, I would say it has like an 85% success rate because I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times and it genuinely works for me most of the time. And if it doesn't work, then I do what I just said. I'll just like eliminate where they said stop and then pick up these cards and shuffle and do something else. But eventually you're going to force your way down to the 10 of spades. If you really are out of options, you can control this card and end up doing like a riffle force. You could just say, okay, say stop anywhere, and then you do a riffle force and force the 10 of spades. Like, it doesn't matter what you guys do at the end of the day. All I'm trying to teach you in this video is that you can leave things up to chance. And if you get lucky, it really could be a genuine miracle. And that always, always makes the trick hit way harder. Like, it just makes the trick look genuinely impossible. So yeah, that is essentially the entire trick right there. It's a very simple concept. There's nothing really to it, but it's a fun kind of challenge to do for magicians because it definitely gets you out of your comfort zone if you're not comfortable with doing all these things that are up to chance. And the proper term for this is jazzing, which is another way of saying improvising. It's definitely something that I've been doing over the past few years that I've gotten way more comfortable with. And if you guys really do put in the time to practice that skill, pretty much any card trick in the world is possible if you leave things up to chance. So just remember that. That's a very important lesson to learn. But yeah, anyways, that's the trick. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, see you guys for the next one. Bye.